Awesome. Let's start with C++ STL. STL stands for Standard Template Library. Standard library tells you that it's part of C++ itself. It comes bundled with C++. You don't have to install anything. And if a judge provides C++ as an option, then you will be able to use C++ standard template as well. It's called template library because it uses C++ template classes, but you don't need to know too much about it to get started. So I'll mainly be covering vectors, sets, and maps. These are data structures. These are the most commonly used. Apart from these also, there are a few, but these are the most commonly used. And for algorithms, sort and binary search are the most commonly used. So let's start with vector. So a vector is pretty much an array. A vector is basically an array, but a lot better. So if there's a tip I'll give you, it's that if you're using arrays in your program, you should stop using them immediately. You should always only use vectors. Only very rarely you'll need to use fixed size arrays, and even then you can use a vector. So make sure to always use a vector, get comfortable with using vectors. Again, a vector is pretty much just a one-dimensional array. So let's read this question to see how we can use a vector to solve it. In this question, you'll be given an array of n integers, and you have to print the integers in reverse order. It's a very simple question. Here, unfortunately, we cannot use the trick that we used in the last question. We will have to store all the elements in an array, and only then we can print them in reverse. So the input format is also simple. You'll be given an input n and n integers, and the next n integers are separated by space, and very simple constraints as well. And output, we have to print them in reverse. So there are easier ways to do this, but let me show you the one that demonstrates use of a vector. This is the program. And in line number 11, you can see the format for declaring a vector. So the way you do that is you say the keyword vector, and in Angular brackets, you specify what type of data type you use, integer, character, or float. In our case, it's an integer. So we specify int here, and this is the name of your variable itself. And then after we read the value of n, for each of those n, we input a value n, and what we do is v.pushback. This pushback just appends the value of num to the vector. So by the time you've read n values, you'll see that you'll have all of them appended to the vector. So if you notice one thing, right, nowhere we've declared what the size of the vector should be. And this is what makes vectors special and better than arrays. So we can just keep on adding numbers to a vector, and C++ will automatically resize them to hold them in memory. You don't have to specify what size. If you use the fixed size array, you will not be able to add more elements than the size of the array. Now to print them out in reverse, we just go from the last till the first. To access the last value, you can use this. v.size returns the size of the vector, and then all the way till 0, and you can print. And you can see that the usage is just like an array. The only way it differs is how you declare it, how you insert values. And there's actually a slightly easier way to read values into a vector, which I'll show later. But you can see that it's pretty much similar to how you use an array. That's how you use vectors. Any questions on vectors? Is the idea clear about vectors? Cool. Let's proceed to sets. So a set is essentially a data structure where you check for membership of an item, and that's useful in a number of situations. So let's take this example to see how a set will help us. So here, this person is a botany professor at a college, and her student, Mickey, she asks her student Mickey to compute the average of all plants with distinct heights in her greenhouse. And the formula is sum of distinct heights divided by total number of distinct heights. So the key word to note here is distinct, which means that in our input, we'll have repeated values, but we'll have to ignore those. And the input format is this. You'll be given integer n, which is the total number of plants. And the next line, you'll have all heights of the plants. Constraints are again very small. You don't even have to look at these. But anyone has an idea how to solve this? It's pretty simple. You can tell me your approach. But the key important thing to note that we are not to count duplicate elements. Well, yes, use sets is correct because clearly our title is set. But another approach would again be to sort and ignore adjacent elements if they're equal and add them up. But of course, set makes that a lot easier, and we'll see how. You can see line 12. This is how you declare an unordered set. So here's another important point to note. Whenever you're using sets and maps, almost all the time you want to declare it as unordered and not just a set. So this is important because if you just declare it as a set, even that is available. If you just declare it as a set, it internally maintains an ordering, and that increases the complexity of your operations. And unordered set is a lot faster than set. On average, unordered set gives you constant time inserts and retrievals. So whenever you're using sets, always make sure to use unordered set and unordered map. In 12, line number 12, you can see again, this is similar to how you declared a vector. You use the keyword unordered set and then what data type is used and name of the variable. So in this case, what we do is we read the value n. For each of those, we input the value number. And what we first do is see if it already exists in our set. So there are a couple of ways. You can also use the find function, but count function returns how many occurrences of the element exist in the set. Because we don't store duplicate elements, it'll always be 0 or 1. So if s.count with the value that we've just read is 0, that means we've not encountered this number yet. And only then we add it to our total. And once we've added it, we add it to the set as well. So the next time we encounter that value num, we see that it's already part of the set. It'll return 1, then we won't be adding it. And at the end, you'll see that you can just take the total divided by the size and you'll get the average that is needed in the question, which is this. Any questions so far? Is it clear? Awesome. If anyone has any question, please ask.
Yeah, excuse me. I have a
Yeah, tell me.
question. Yeah, is it necessary to use storing the numbers? Read then, like instead of using a storage medium for that, we can directly read the numbers, add, and like maintain a count for that instead of storing it in a set and then using the sites. That would like reduce this space complexity as well. No?
Yes, the problem is that it has to be distinct. If you throw away the numbers, then you don't. So you're saying what we did in the first example, right? We don't have to store it in a set. We just read it and
Yes,
total.
yes.
That you can do only if you're just calculating the average. In this example, the key thing to know that it's distinct. So if you have something
Yes, yes.
5 and 5 and 5,
Okay,
instead of adding it as 5 plus 5 plus 5, you just have to take 5 once and divide it by 1.
Okay, so
yeah.
we need to have a track of previous numbers, right? Fine,
Correct.
thank you.
Correct. Yeah, so the other way to do that is to sort and then remove the duplicates. The simpler way to do it is using a set. This will ensure you don't have any duplicates. And then, so you can also do one thing. Instead of doing total here, you can iterate through all the elements in the set and add them up in also. This will save you some amount of time because you're just adding the total when you've not encountered it in your set. Any other question? By dynamic, if you mean that you don't have to specify the size, then yes. You don't have to specify what size the set is. C++ will take care of managing the memory for that. You can also specify the size of the set that is allowed, and that will make it slightly faster because increasing the size of the set does take a performance hit, but it's not noticeable. Amortized, it is a constant operation. You can specify the size if you know it beforehand. If you know that there are n items that are going to be in your set, you can specify the size, and C++ will allocate that much size for the set. Does that answer your question? Cool. Any more questions? All right. Let's go to maps. Maps are some of the most important data structures you'll use, whether in competitive programming or in interviews. A map is same as hash map, hash table, dictionary. All of these are just map. And again, like I said previously, specific to C++, if you're using a map, make sure to always use an unordered map. So a map is very similar to a set, but it's an extension to a set. You can say a set is a smaller version of a map, a more limited version of a map. So in set, what we did was we just checked if the item existed in the set or not. In map, what we can do is also associate a value with that item. So in the set, we can think of it as a map where the value is 1. So for example, if you take the case of a phone book, which what happens is if you give the name of the person as the key, the phone book app will return to you the phone number of that person. So here the name of the person is the key and the phone number is the value. So it's important to know that map is basically a collection of key and value pairs. Internally, it's organized using a special data structure that allows it to retrieve very quickly. So you can read about how map is implemented in C++. Let's see this question to see how we can solve it using a map. Well, by now you should already know that you can use a map, but let's see how else we can solve it. So this person is a kidnapper who wrote a ransom note, but is worried that it will be traced back to him through his handwriting. So like kidnappers do, they find a magazine, wants to know if they can cut out whole words from it and use them to create a replica of the ransom note. So the words are case sensitive and must only use whole words available in the magazine. Cannot use concatenation. So what will be given is the words in the magazine and the words in the ransom note. If it is possible to get the words that are in the note from the magazine, you should print yes. If not, you print no. Here's an example. If the note is attack at dawn and the magazine contains attack at dawn, it has all the words that are needed, then you can just print yes. But in this case, it's not a yes because the capital A and small a. But if it's case insensitive, you can just say all the words are present. Input is like this, M and N, their size of the words in magazine and note, and then you'll have all the words in magazine and all the words in note. So I've already told you that you have to use a map. Anyone has an idea of what else that you can use other than a map? You basically want to check if the words in the note are already there in the words in the magazine. So to check if an item exists in a particular data structure, we just learned about sets. So here's an approach. You can go through all the words in the magazine and put them in a set. And then what you can do next is go through each word in the note and check if it is already in the set or not. But there's a flaw in this. Can anyone identify what the flaw is? Why you can't use a set to check if words in a note are available in a magazine? Well, distinct, yes. That is the idea of a set. But why can you not use a set? You can use distinct items in a map as well, right? So the question is, why should you not use a set in this example? And why should you use a map? Duplicate items are not stored in the set. That's true. Okay, I think you have the idea. Let me just give you an example so the others can understand. So what is not mentioned in this question is that the words can repeat, right? It is implicit. If in this example, they've given 3 words and all of them are distinct, but you can have something like attack at dawn at 9 a.m. in the morning. So you can see that the word at is repeated multiple times. If you use a set, the word at will just be present once. But if the note has multiple ats, you won't be able to know if you have that many ats in the set or not. So in our case, we can't just use a set and we have to use a map and we have to keep track of how many occurrences are there of each word. Is this clear? Cool, should be. Let me just say that again. We can't use a set because we can't keep track of how many such similar items are there in a set. A set will just tell us if the item exists in the data structure or not. A map will help us associate a value with a key. A map is like a set, but it also has a value with the item in the set. So in our case, when we read all the words, what we'll do is read the word and initially just set it as 1. So attack appears once, at appears once, dawn appears once. But if we see that the word at has appeared again, then we'll increment it to say the word at has been repeated once, which means its value will be 2. And then we can go through all the words in the note and see if we have so many words available in the magazine. Is the approach clear? If you've not understood, please ask. Cool. So let me show you the program. So I split it into 2 parts here. So again, this is again very similar to how you declared vectors and sets. The only difference is that you have 2 values in the angular brackets here. Earlier you just had 1. So here, this specifies what data type is for the key, and this specifies what the data type is for the value. So in our program, the key is the word itself, which is a string. So the key's data type is string, and the value will be an integer because it will be something like 1, 2, 3. And this is the name of our variable. What we do next is go through M is the number of words in the magazine. So for each of M, we read a word. And what we do is we do m.count. This is very similar to what we did in set. So this will also return 0 or whether it's present or not. And then if it is present, we access the value associated with the word using this. You can see that it's again like an array. Arrays and vectors and sets are similar and they have some variations. So here you see that we access in arrays, you can treat them as a special version of map because the keys are all only integers. You say m of 1, m of 2, right? Here you can also give keys that are not integers. In this example, it's a word or a string. So if first we see m.count of word, which means we're checking if the word is present in the map. If not, we initialize it saying map of word is equal to 1. Otherwise, we know that the word already exists in the map and we increment it. So this is the first step. We go through all the words in the magazine and this will tell us how many count of each word appears. So our map data structure is filled such that it has all the keys, which are the words, and associated with that are all the values. So next what we do is we have to go through all the words in the note. So let's go through I is equal to 0 till n. We read the word. So again, what we do is m.count of word. So in m, we check if the word has already been there. If we see that we have not seen the word at all, it's not in our map, then we can immediately say that this sentence cannot be formed. We set this flag as false and we break out of the loop. And then we can print out a no. If not, we know that the word exists in our map and then we decrement the count. And then what we do is if the count for a particular word has reached 0, then we have to remove it from our map. You can do these operations in a slightly more compact way, but I've written it in a longer way so that it's easy to understand. So you can see if after we decrement count of a particular word, if it has reached 0, we just simply remove it from the word. So that next time if we see a word again, we can just say, no, you cannot do this. So based on the value of flag, we can print whether we can build this note or not.